Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race. We are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 276 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I am excited that you are here and excited for our episode today. Many of the guests that we have on the show tend to be people who you may have seen on other podcasts or heard stories about or read about in Runner's World. But there really hasn't been much enough by far on my guest today. And I'm really excited that we got to dive into her story. And this is just going to be an inspiring story in such a different way to what we usually cover. If you enjoyed my episode with Sanjay Rawal a few years ago, I will put a link in the show notes to that one. If you enjoyed that one, you are certainly going to enjoy this one. But also it is just a great one going into the holidays, going into 2022, where you can think about what you want out of your running and out of your life. I think this is just going to be a really feel-good one for us all to hear. So today I am excited to introduce you to Harita Davis, who is one of only a very few women to complete the Sri Chinmoy Self-Transcendence 3,100 mile race. 3,100 mile race, just let that soak in for a minute. 3,100 miles, continuous running about 18 hours a day. Just hard to imagine. She has such an amazing story, and we talk a lot about depression and working through tough times today. So I think if you are someone who's maybe going through a bit of a rough time, this may be helpful for you as we talk about running. We talk about just kind of a disconnect between your body and your mind. So I'm not going to say too much more because I want her to share it for herself. So let's get to the episode with Harita. Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I have been talking about Tracksmith for years now. They have my absolute favorite clothes. I am wearing them right now to record this. I'm wearing 2 layers of Tracksmith actually to record this. I have the Brighton base underneath and I have one of the zip-ups on top. I wear them throughout my day-to-day life and then I wear them to run. I feel like that is such a good way to get the use out of them. You know I am passionate about sustainability and these clothes are quality. They last well. The clothes that I've had well over 2 years look exactly the same as the day I first received them. And that is what I think is really important to mention about sustainability. Yes, it is important to use sustainable items and materials when we can, but the best thing we can do is hold on to our items for as long as we can and use the heck out of them. And that is what you can do with Tracksmith. As I said, I wear it in my day-to-day life and then I wear it in my running too, so I get double use out of it. They are so comfortable. They are stylish, they're simple and sleek, and I've asked for some of their stuff for myself for Christmas because I just adore it. So as I've mentioned before, the Brighton base layer, which I'm wearing right now, is one of my absolute favorite items for this time of year. I love this spice color they have right now. They also have a walnut, a charcoal, which is what I'm wearing now. And it is just a seamless, lightweight long sleeve, and it's made from this engineered merino mesh. So you can go to tracksmith.com/collection/running-for-real. I know that's a bit of a mouthful. So you can also just go to the show notes to check out the link there. Or you can just use code TINA15, which will donate 5% of your order to Runners for Public Lands, which is a non-profit environmental organization dedicated to environmental justice, advocacy, and conservation. A fantastic non-profit to support, and 5% of your sales will go to that. So thank you to Tracksmith for that. I appreciate you. I appreciate Tracksmith, and let's get back to the episode. Harita, I am so excited to have you on the Running for Real podcast today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a little different to, I think, many of the previous guests that we have had in terms of just what the race we're going to talk about that you have done and how different in every way, in distance, in approach, in attitude, in just mental mindset, how different that approach is compared to most races that people listening would do. However, when I had Sanjay Rawal on a few years ago, people really enjoyed the episode with him, which ties in nicely to your episode. So I know people are going to enjoy it. And I want to thank Sanjay for introducing me to you. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what that race is, and then I think we'll go backwards to your earlier start, and then we'll work our way back forward. So you were one of only, and correct me if I've got this wrong, because some of the stats were a little bit confusing, but you were one of only 8 women to complete the Sri Chinmoy Self-Transcendence 3,100-mile race. Is that correct? One of 8? So that means the 8 women have completed it. And yes. You're the only one with 2 finishes?
No, I've finished it 3 times now. Okay. And there have been, I think, about 4 women who have finished it this many times. And actually the first woman who finished it, she finished it 13 times in a row. So she did the race, and she's an American woman. She did the race every year for the first 13 years.
Amazing. And so I want to, people might hear 3,100 or 3,100 miles and think, wait, what? And that does mean what you think it means. It means 51 days of running 18 hours a day. And there's a further thing that makes this a little more challenging and I guess transcending, just to use the term from the race. So can you tell everyone what the additional piece is about this specific race in terms of where you're running?
Okay, so we're running around a half-mile block in Jamaica, Queens.
Yes, which, I mean, just so hard. I mean, I struggle with running loops that are like 5 miles long. So I just, one day I've told Sanjay this many times that I want to be there for to come see, but I just don't want to take, like, climate change reasons. I don't want to like fly over there specifically. So I have to find a reason to be there during that time. And then I can justify it to myself. But we're going to talk about the race in a little bit. But I want to go backwards to your beginnings. Now, you have been quoted to say in a few podcasts, in interviews, that sport saved your life. And as a teen, you struggled with depression. So maybe, as I'm assuming, when you were a teenager, talking about depression wasn't something that everyone did just casually, as is becoming maybe not always the case here, but mental health is definitely discussed more openly now. So can you talk about what was going on there and what you were feeling for someone who may be working through that now and has found in themselves that sport or running has been, part of what is helping them get through that?
Sure. So when I was young, my parents did a lot of sport, and so I always kind of had a connection with sport. I was kind of quite we were pretty like happy kind of family, I guess. My parents got divorced when I was 11, and that was like a big kind of I think I had a huge impact on my life. And I'm someone who usually kind of deals with things over time. Like at first when it happened, I have like delayed reactions to everything, basically. So when it first happened, I was like, oh, okay, people's parents get divorced, I can deal with this. And then, as my parents had different partners and I had a stepmother and these kind of things, I kind of thought, oh yeah, this is, I'm dealing with this. Now I've got a stepbrother and a stepsister. And when I look back, I think that that kind of instability was really huge for me, and my lack of kind of really, and my parents did their best, but it definitely wasn't something that was really talked about. There was not really a lot of awareness of the impact that it has on kids and the impact of your parents, not liking each other anymore has on you, as a young person. And so I think that that kind of lead into me being a teenager, and then having a stepmother that, we really had a bad relationship. That combined with all of the hormonal changes that you go through as a young girl, definitely gave me a lot of insecurity inside myself, and probably was a big factor in the depression. And I was, and then I think I was always somebody who had a lot of integrity and wanted to do something good for the world and wanted to do something good with my life. And I couldn't really see what direction that was going to go in, because I didn't have any hope for a clear direction for it. And I think I've, read a lot about young people losing hope and how that can be such a factor in them suffering from either depression or anger or frustration or loneliness and all these kind of things. And when I look back, that was really something that was a big thing for me. And just not having hope in my own life for clear life path, and then not having hope for humanity, just kind of seeing war and all these kind of things that we don't really understand how we can change it. I grew up in New Zealand. It's a super nice place to grow up, but also has a lot of social problems as well, and for a country that's so beautiful and peaceful, has a really high depression rate, especially for teenagers, especially for young male teenagers. And so, and we come from like yourself, we come from a British heritage, so we kind of usually suppress our feelings and our emotions, and aren't that good at expressing ourselves. And so I think there's a lot in that, like you said, of like not really having the tools of how to deal with it, and not really talking about it, and then ending up really, really unhappy.
So I'm just curious, though, you said about the high depression rates, particularly in teenage boys. Has there been, like, why that would be? Like, has there been research into that?
I don't know that much about research into that area. But I just, from my own evaluation, I would say that particularly in these kind of British-rooted cultures, that there's and knowing like the kind of idea of the strong Kiwi male being like a kind of strong person, and then not being emotional, not expressing your emotions, and then not having an outlet for them, and then that really leads to a lot of loneliness and not having anyone to talk to, and not. And, as the world's changing, not really seeing where your place in the world lies.
Yeah. Well, thank you for, your thoughts on that. I think most people listening, if you were to think of somewhere where, you'd put New Zealand in that category with like Sweden and Scandinavia, Norway, where I may be getting the countries wrong, but some of the, I know that Sweden's definitely one of them, where people are they're surrounded by beauty. People are happy and they just kind of are satisfied with their life. Like, I think I would definitely have put New Zealand in that category. So it's interesting to hear, but you're right that it probably is that British element of culture is about stuffing things down and keeping it, stiff upper lip kind of thing. So, with that, sport became something for you that helped you through that time. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I was into water sports, and I played water polo. My parents were both surf lifesavers, so I did surf lifesaving, and a lot of in America, that's not such a big sport, but in New Zealand, it's a big sport because we're surrounded by oceans.
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand and Australia, a lot of people do surf lifesaving. So that's I did like surf ski, which is kind of like a kayak on the ocean, and
Okay.
in different kind of team sports, which are, it's actually really, really cool sport. And those surf lifesaving and water polo often kind of link because they're both water sports. So as I kind of got into my teenage years and then really started experiencing depression more, I just kind of really came to see how I could be feeling so bad and just feeling like, there was no point in me living my life at all. And then I had to go to a water polo game and I would be like, no, I can't do it. And then I would drag myself out of bed. And sometimes I would even, like on a Sunday, I would maybe stay in bed for the whole day and then have a water polo game at like 5 p.m. or something. And actually my friend and I would sometimes go to the pool still in our pajamas and, just kind of be like, oh God, we have to play water polo. But I would, put on my swimsuit, jump in the pool, and then I would just realize that, within a few minutes I had forgotten all my problems and I was just actually quite happily focused on, I'm there with my friends. I'm in an environment where I have to really focus and push myself. And at the end, after I had that, physical movement and the kind of adrenaline and everything that the team sport and just the movement brings, I would feel great, And so I always really remember how that was. Yeah, to me, that was like a miracle, like I was like, that's a miracle because you don't understand anything about how to change yourself psychologically. When you're in the middle of feeling depressed, you feel like that's your whole complete world. And then you can go from feeling so low to feeling fine just from playing a game of water polo. And so I knew there was really something really deep in that, far beyond just, just being with your friends or whatever.
Yeah, there's so many things that we could talk about from that. I mean, firstly, saying that the depression and mental health struggles are everywhere in all of us, and that's such a beautiful example of like taking out the psychological aspect because you were a teenager and didn't know any different, of going into a sport, whereas a grown adult might say, okay, I've been told that exercise combats depression, so I'm going to go out for a walk and I know I'm going to come back better. But you're already adding that like pressure, So that's a perfect example of just letting it kind of comes to you and being like, wow, I do feel better without thinking that I should feel better. But then also, I'm surprised that you didn't then, wake up that next morning feeling depressed again, feeling a low moment, and say to yourself, I'm going to go out and do something, some kind of exercise. Like, I feel like maybe that's how people could end up in a state of exercise addiction if you were struggling with depression, because you'd just be constantly looking for that high again. Were there any thoughts in there for you of being like, I need to find something else that makes me feel good again? Or did you just, because you were a teenager, just have to settle for whatever structured things your parents or whatever you'd signed up for?
I think there's definitely an aspect kind of as a teenager and being surrounded by friends who also are struggling of you almost wanting to stay depressed, or it's just like, there's a certain kind of normality in that.
What's that term? Like, misery loves company. Right?
Yes. Yeah. And also not really, if you don't really understand the roots of what your problem is and what you're really going through, then it's so hard to really figure out who you really are, and as we get older, even though we can still definitely suffer from depression and all kinds of anxieties and problems, we still have more of a clearer picture of who we are. And so I think that was like who do you define yourself as? And for me, I almost felt like I had sort of defined myself as two different people. I mean, I never really had any serious psychological issues with split personality or anything, but I definitely had my sort of depressed person, who was sort of like, life is meaningless, or I don't see where my life can go, and I see no hope for humanity, and there's everything bad happening in the world. And then my kind of sport person who would be like, yay!
Were any of your friends the same? Like, were they the same friends that you were with during the day and doing the sports, or not?
I kind of had sort of two different lots of friends, really. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, teenagers, so a lot going on there. So it's hard to, understand exactly decisions and why they were made and stuff. But do you see, I mean, right now there's a lot of that feeling going around. You keep mentioning, the hope, humanity, things like that. And there's a lot of that. I mean, I am obsessed with the, sounding the alarm, getting action on the climate, taking climate action. But I feel like it's not just me who senses that and is thinking about that a lot. It is in the minds of, I think a lot of people right now, but also just this tumultuous period that every country is in right now. We're definitely in like a transition period. Have you been working through any of that? Has it been reminding you in any way of what you're going through? Or would you say, and if not, how have you kept yourself from feeling elements of that?
Sorry, do you mean has like the past reminded me, or can you just...
Has like this moment right now we're in where everywhere's a bit, tumultuous, reminded you of some of the feelings you experienced when you were a teenager?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. And I think that we all have these kind of within us, these challenges. And although from that time of me being a teenager, I discovered meditation and spirituality, which we'll probably talk about later. And that really, made a huge change for me. At the same time, I still have like the seeds of depression inside me, and the seeds of kind of like, the feeling of losing hope, or, not really knowing, what I'm meant to do with my life or something like that. Like these kind of things can still come up in different ways. And so I feel like there are things that I always really try to, to fight against with my positivity and with my spirituality. But I see, especially when you see as a whole world community how much we're all struggling with a lot of these things, and you identify with other people, and then you identify with those feelings within yourself, and then you see, we're all vulnerable. We all have so much vulnerability to losing hope, or to depression, or to just focusing too much on all of the negative things that are happening in the world. And so for me, it's so important in my own life just to really try to find that balance between identifying and being, acknowledging that this is a really challenging time for so many people, but also really trying not to go, not to go down that depression road, or like really losing hope or whatever, because I know that's not going to help me, and it's not going to help the world in any way. But I think it's been a really interesting time.
Thank you to UCAN for sponsoring this episode of the Running for a podcast. Now, I've told you all about the UCAN products that help sustain me through my races. I've been racing with UCAN since 2013, and I can't imagine using anything else. I was going to use it in my 50K until COVID took that situation away from me. I used it in the New York Marathon, and I intend on using it in every race I plan to do in 2022. Now, I've told you about UCAN Edge, which is their gels, and they are fantastic. The strawberry banana flavor is my favorite. I've told you about the bars. The salted peanut is also my favorite bar. And I have told you about the powder before. They have an energy and a protein version. Both of those are just fantastic for daily life, as well as keeping you sustained during your races. But today I want to talk a little bit about some of the healthy snacks. These actually make great gifts if you are thinking of something unique. Their energy mix is enhanced with superstarch. It's this premium granola made with almonds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, cashew, and chia seeds, all in this great granola. It's chocolate flavor and it's got UCAN in it. It tastes delicious. It is so easy to just munch on, grabbing a handful or having it in a bowl of cereal. I love it. And they also have almond butter enhanced with superstarch. So it's just dry roasted almonds and superstarch. That's it. Tastes delicious on toast, bread, by the spoonful, to be honest, all the ways you can think of. Now, I wanted to talk about those today because they're just great ways to enhance the rest of your nutritional profile throughout the day in an easy way. I absolutely love them and use them regularly. So, my friends, you can get 20% off your order by using code TINAUCAN at ucan.co. That's ucan.co, and using code TINAUCAN to go get yourself 20% off those products and also support Running for Real while you are doing that. Thank you again to UCAN for sponsoring this episode. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, as you mentioned, that's something everyone is trying to work through. There's all these psychologists and experts in the world that are their jobs are to suck us in and to make us, want to keep focusing on that stuff. And as humans, we do have a negativity bias as a survival mechanism. But then you want to be caring and thoughtful about what people are, working through. But also you have to protect yourself and do what is best for your heart and your spirit. So I want to talk, just bring us back into running, and then we'll go into some of those spiritual pieces of this. But for those, you've said that it wasn't running that was getting you through those tough times as a teenager, but going from not having running be a major piece to running 3,100 miles and 51 days at a time, there had to be some kind of transition there. However, it wasn't that you found running one day and you just started running and you ran for 12 hours, no problem. So tell us a bit about how you your first memories of running and how you got into it.
Sure. So I guess I always maybe did a little bit of running at school, and it definitely wasn't something that I was particularly good at. Especially, I probably was actually starting to do okay when I was about 10 or 11 years old. And then once I hit puberty and my body changed, I think for so many girls, you just all of a sudden you're not good. And then you think that I'm not good at it anymore. And you see the boys like just going so well. And so I think, that was probably just like a real point where I was like, this isn't my sport. And then I did, when I was 18, I did an outward bound course, which was in New Zealand and Anakiwa. And that was a huge, I think that was a huge influence in my life. For anyone who's done outward bound, or a lot of people know about it, it's just, an incredible experience, especially as an 18-year-old who's really struggling with finding your way in your life and depression and is so socially influenced to do something where you're sort of taken out of your life and put in a situation where you are having to work with a team of people, but then also trying all these new sports and new things, and just kind of seeing, every day the whole focus is how learning to do new things, go beyond yourself, helping other people is kind of helping you find something strong within yourself. And so, there was a lot that I got out of that. But in terms of the running, you have to do like a 2-mile run every morning, and then you have to go and jump in the ocean, and it's freezing cold, and then you have to do a half marathon at the end of it. And I had been injured right beforehand. I'd fallen off my bike, and so I was worried about whether I'd be able to do it and be able to do the running. And because injure my heel. And then I was able to do it. I saw over the 3 weeks that I could kind of run more, and I got fitter. And yeah, when I did that half marathon, that was like, I wasn't that I thought I'm going to become a runner now, but I was like, wow, that was, that was an accomplishment. So I think I sort of saw how, just having like this goal is so incredibly rewarding when you achieve it, and, then in terms of the running going forward from that, I might have kept up doing a little bit of running. I'm not sure. But then when I started practicing meditation, it was really, my running was all just a part of my spiritual life, because I went along to a free meditation class, and the meditation class was the philosophy of Sri Chinmoy, based on his philosophy, and he just gives so much importance to physical exercise. And at that time, the people who were giving the classes and the kind of whole structure of the Sri Chinmoy Center was, there was a lot of focus on running. All the people who were there and who were part of the center were all meditating and running, and it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, it was like, you start meditating and you start running, and like that, to me, like that immediately, that kind of rang a bell for me, because of how much sport had helped me. And at the point when I started meditating, I was also really at a very desperate point in my life. Like, I was 20 years old, and I was like, I don't know, this meditation, really doesn't look fun at all, but I have to give it a go, because I don't know.
Amazing. You could do that age 20. I can't imagine coming to that realization at 20, but I wish I had.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really grateful that I did. And so I started meditating, and I started running, and the two of them have been, the solid points in my life, from then on. They've been and I've never had the one without the other.
Yeah. And I would love to go into that a bit more, in terms of, even from that point, it wasn't like all smooth sailings. Now, we've talked about endometriosis before, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the LaToya Shante Snell episode where she talked about it. But for the listeners, tell us about how, when endometriosis came into the picture, and what happens to your body.
Sure. So I think there's many, many different versions of endometriosis. So I can really only say for myself. I don't know when I first started getting it. Basically, as soon as I started, as a fairly young person, I would get pretty bad period pain. And so I've always had that, I still, have that. But at some point, when after I had been running for some time, I started getting really exhausted. And this was around the year when it really started happening seriously, was around the year 2007. So that was when I was like 32, something like that. And so I'd done marathons, I'd done some ultra marathons. Again, like for me, I was never like I was never a really good runner. I was never really competing, like knowing other, good runners or anything. But at the same time, it was such an important part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I saw how much it helped me spiritually, and it just gave me these amazing goals. And Sri Chinmoy spoke so much about the inner running and the outer running. And so I did marathons, I did ultra marathons, I did multi-day races. And after I did a multi-day race, I was never good at taking care of myself. I didn't know anything about the science of that, really. And I really didn't recover well. And I guess somehow that led to the endometriosis becoming more serious. And it's when the red blood cells reproduce themselves outside of your ovaries. And so you can, I know that people have all different issues with it. And I think there's a lot of women who have probably had it a lot more seriously than I have personally. And it can be really, really devastating for many women. And it's much more common than people realize.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that was, until very recently, you really didn't talk about it at all. Not that I felt ashamed of it, but it's just, you just didn't talk about it. Women don't, it's like you don't talk about when you're coming up to getting your period, and that it could be really painful and really, devastate you for a few days, and you don't even really talk about it at all. And so for me, it meant that I just had a lot of internal inflammation, and I really couldn't run for more than a couple of miles for quite a few years. I would just be exhausted. And so that was a really, really challenging time for me, because running had always been such an important part of my happiness and my peace and my identity, even though I wasn't like, in the world that a lot of people, that you and a lot of people are, just sort of like, competitive running just for my own personal identity. It was huge.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I used to be that way, but I would say now I'm more on the end that you were in. And right. I honestly much prefer it. So, but then how did that affect you? Like, you have this piece of you that you said is like works hand in hand with your meditation, that is part of Sri Chinmoy's, that's what people do, yes. And for the men who were, that you were surrounding yourself with, they wouldn't even think about this, but like, how did you emotionally handle that? Like, was there any pieces of like feeling isolated or alone, or like, I don't belong? Like, how did you work through that when, I know you would have worked through it in your meditation, but did those feelings arise? Because, it was taking away one major piece of what as you said, your identity.
Yeah, there definitely wasn't, like, in the, although running is something that Sri Chinmoy gives a lot of importance to, there's plenty of people in our community who don't run. Okay. So it wasn't like I was kind of feeling like isolated in that kind of way, but okay. Just for myself and for the importance that I gave to running for my for my happiness and the balance in my life, it was really huge. And when I look back, I see that it was actually a real blessing in disguise, because I hated walking. I mean, I was always like, I hate walking. I'm someone who runs, and I don't like walking. And you define yourself so often. We limit ourselves so much by the way we define ourselves without even really thinking that much about it. And so when you all of a sudden can't really run and you have to walk, I'm like, but I hate walking.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe you need to learn to like walking,
Yeah, perfect example of that. Like, what you don't want to do, that's what you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I just had to really slow down, then I was like, actually pretty soon I was like, I actually love walking. Like, this is amazing. I'm just having a totally different experience. It's way more peaceful. It's not nearly as noisy, and you can really see things much better. You can appreciate things. It can be much more meditative, because you have more time just to really identify with sky, or the trees, or whatever is around you, and with your own more kind of slowness within yourself. And so I just had to kind of have a mental shift in that way, and it was definitely hard for me, but I think that it actually ended up giving me a lot more freedom, because if you're dependent on these things, you really limit yourself so much, and we so often put ourselves into a cage just with our thoughts and the way that we define our happiness and what we need in our lives. And so I think and it's been the same for me, and I'm sure a lot of people would say that every injury that I've had in running, when you have an injury, you're like, oh no, I've got an injury. But now I look back on every injury that I've had has actually just really helped me so much to understand my body more, to understand myself more, to have a bit more patience, and to feel more free, and not to feel, by the end of, I had about 5 years when I could really hardly run. And by the end of that, I felt like when I could run again, it was just an incredible blessing in my life. And it wasn't something that I needed, because, this, we need to just be grateful, really, as long as we can find things, and there's so much to be grateful for. And as long as you have a mental focus on things in your life that you can be grateful for, then there's nothing actually that you need.
Our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking Athletic Greens because I had heard other people talking about the benefits. I saw that it was 75 whole food source ingredients and the antioxidant equivalent of 12 servings of fruits and vegetables. And I was curious, but I also couldn't see how it could possibly live up to the level of interest and the way that people raved about it until I tried it. It changed my life. And actually, Knox Robinson, who I co-host Running Realized with, texted me the other day and said that he woke up craving Athletic Greens. It is powerful. It is, it tastes good. It is full of so many nutritious, delicious flavors and ingredients that it is just so easy to love. With one scoop of Athletic Greens, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients, superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens. It's going to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients is going to support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging, all the things. I have it the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning. It is my favorite thing to do, and I feel so good having it. Now, to make it easy for you, right now it's time for you to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially as we head into cold and flu season. One scoop in a cup of water every day, that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look after your health. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/Tina. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/Tina to take ownership over your health, pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance, and you, my friends, can get that special deal in Canada, in the US, in Europe, in the UK. That deal is for yours for the taking. Go get it, athleticgreens.com/Tina. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautifully said. So you said there was a period of 5 years where you were mostly unable to run. And is this where, sports physiology guru, one of the most mentioned, I would say, important in terms of women doctors, Dr. Stacey Sims, came into your life and really helped you to come out the other side of this? Or was that further down the road?
That was totally further down the road.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't anything to do with that.
Okay. So then how did you get to a point where you were able to start running again?
So for me, that was really a very important point in my life. And I can't say that it would be the same for everyone, but I think at the same time, there's like a lot you can get from it, because I was practicing meditation and I was working in a restaurant in Christchurch. I was the manager of a restaurant there for a long time. And I love New Zealand, and I always thought that I would live there. And that was kind of what my life was focused on. But at the same time, I knew there was something like all these vitamins I was taking, everything that I was doing was not helping the endometriosis. And I just had like this really inner feeling that this isn't going to be fixed through medication. It's like something's not right in my life and I don't know how to fix it. And I'm a very harmonious kind of person. And so even though I wasn't really happy in my job and everything, I just kind of felt like, well, this is what I'm meant to do and something's wrong with me. I just need to somehow fix. I wasn't feeling very happy actually for a while, but I was kind of in denial about it, and pretty seriously in denial about it. And then we had this big earthquake in Christchurch in 2011, and we had a restaurant and a cafe. They were both closed down. And I ended up, for a start, the earthquake was just, I think for so many people, it was much more than just this outer earthquake. It like really kind of had so much symbolism in your own life and in the way that you looked at your life and what was happening. And so for me, at the first, when it happened, I just felt so grateful for my spiritual life, because I saw people suffering so much from losing things outwardly. And I was like, I have everything that I need inside me. And I'm just so grateful for that. But then I ended up going and spending some time in New York, which is where the Sri Chinmoy was based in New York. And since our restaurant was closed, I didn't have anything that I had to do. So I went and started spending a little time over there. And I just kind of started having so many realizations about how I really needed to make a change in my life. I wasn't like, it's that thing of, they say, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, it's not going to happen. And I was like, oh my God, I really like, something really needs to change. And even though I never, ever imagined living in New York or living in America, I feel really happy here. I'm like, and I just, I had like a couple of beautiful kind of images. Like one of them was like, I saw myself, like, if you imagine an archer with a bow and they like pull the bow back, and the further back you pull it, when you let it go, the further the arrow flies. And I kind of felt myself as like that bow that had just been pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled. And then finally it was like, with the earthquake, with this change, it was just like, let it go. And I just felt like I have, like, I can't deny this, like I have to make a big change in my life. And so I ended up, and that I tried to go back to New Zealand. I tried to go back to my job and stuff there. And I was also like, the other image that I had was like of a book that you've read from start to finish, and then you've finished the book and you close the book and it's time to open a new book, and you try to go back and start reading the old book, and you're like, I already read this book, like, whatever I was meant to get from my experience in that, and the life that I was living in New Zealand, I had learned everything from it, and it was time for something new. And so I ended up, moving to New York. I ended up becoming really involved in the another one of Sri Chinmoy's initiatives, which is called the Sri Chinmoy Oneness Home Peace Run. I decided I would do that in 2012. Someone invited me to do it, and I was like, I was totally tricked into it, because I thought, that would be kind of a cool way to see all the national parks around America without really having to pay for it. And I love running at the same time. So I went and I did the peace run, and then I just actually, I fell in love with America. I spent 3 months running all around America. Before I went, I have mentioned in a couple of other interviews or whatever that I was really nervous about doing it, and I had an Ayurvedic doctor that I would see, and
nervous about your like being able to run because of the endometriosis.
And he had been always sort of like kind of advising me, or helping me with it, and saying that you really can't run more, which I knew. I would try running more and I would feel terrible. And so I was nervous about telling him I was planning on going out running for 3 months around America. And he was just like, he saw it in a whole new way, and I felt it in a whole new way. And he said, it will be so good for you. And I was like, really? And then, anyway, I ended up doing it. I ended up somehow just, I felt so happy. I was with amazing people who just had so much goodness. And I was just having a whole new experience in my life, but it really all came down to being happy and following my heart and following my inspiration, and not being bound by what I felt like I should do or what was the right thing to do, but just really stepping out of that and doing something different. And then from then on, my endometriosis really just somehow went away, and I didn't have any problems. I mean, I still have, I can still have problems with period pain or whatever, but in terms of my running, I could just run again.
Wow, amazing.
And so it was a beautiful experience in the end for me. The whole thing was a beautiful experience, because when I could run again, I was so grateful. I had a totally different relationship with it, and it was just a real blessing. But I could really see that it all came from from following my heart and from, really, really doing what really made me happy.
I love that. And for someone who hears what you're saying and kind of recognizes that feeling of like, where the path I'm going down just doesn't feel right, but I just don't know what to do. I'll hear someone like you, Harita, saying this, and think, well, that's amazing, but I just can't. I don't know what my direction is. I don't know what step to take. I don't know how to make that change in my life. What would you tell that person?
Well, for a start, I think that if you don't have any practice of meditation or, really making time to connect with your inner self, then that's so important. And of course I did have a practice of meditation. And so I think that's what helped me just to be able to do it, because you have to connect with that strength inside of yourself. And so I would really recommend that. And then just being maybe finding just small ways to really, for me, I really try to think what I'm inspired about and what will make me happy, and just try to keep it really simple, even in my little life decisions. So kind of finding things. And sometimes I guess it's like when I was depressed when I was a teenager, our minds make it so much bigger than it really is. Our minds just always want to make a mountain out of a molehill with any problem we have. And they say that with worry, like 90% of the things you worry about, or even 99%, never happen. And yet every day our mind is so easily filled with worrying about the future, worrying about all the things that could happen. And so, always trying to kind of realize that it's, even though it seems like a huge thing, it won't be that. It won't be as hard as you think. It won't be as hard as you think to make those changes. And even if you start doing a few little things that are just good for you, and that really, really find one thing that really will make you feel happy, and just start with that, then it can be really surprising how that can blossom into totally changing your mindset and the way that you feel. But because meditation is such a huge part of my life, and because I've seen it help so many people, then I would have to say that if you don't have a regular practice of meditation, that's really the best place to start, because it's really the only way to really connect with your higher self.
Yeah. And also I think that ties back to what you were saying very early on in the interview, in terms of you need to do what you don't want to do, or like, the things that you're trying to avoid doing are the things you need the most. And often when we are struggling with that inner disconnect, we fill our life with things to think about, or we make sure we're always listening to music, or we make sure that there's just stuff going on because we don't want to deal with it. But what we need is that quiet, so that you're not trying to sleep at night and all those thoughts come flooding in, which means you can't sleep, which means you go into the next day feeling anxious and stressed because you haven't had sleep. So that adds to it. So to me, what you're saying also adds that, like, someone listening who is feeling that inner disconnect, as much as you don't want to sit there with your thoughts and be quiet and be still because you're scared of what's going to come up, that is not only an act of courage, but also that it will, as Harita is saying, it'll give you the answer. You just have to, be prepared for that discomfort in a way that maybe you've been avoiding. So,
and be prepared to be really patient. And patience is something that is really undervalued in this kind of crazy social media, technical kind of everything happening so fast. The faster you can do everything, the quicker you can do everything, the more things you can do in one day is kind of somehow given so much value, even though we know how unsatisfying it is actually.
Yeah.
You know, if you take all the shortcuts, it's not really that satisfying, you know, but if you actually, it's like, you know, it's just like walking up the mountain compared to driving up it, you know, you can.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great example there. Okay. I want to make sure we talk about the run itself. So just briefly, let's talk a bit about, I mentioned Dr. Stacey Sims. What did she help you to do? Just so that listeners, you know, I definitely would recommend if you do have any kind of hormonal female related questions, Stacey has such good content everywhere she puts it out, on her website, on social media, wherever you go. You can learn a lot about all elements of the stages of your menstrual cycle, of the stages of life as a woman. So I want to encourage people to go there, but tell us a bit about what Stacey did for you.
Sure. So I only found out about her quite recently, maybe like it was just after I did the 3100 for the second time. So it was like about a year and a half ago. And I listened to a podcast of her talking, and I was immediately like, wow, I'm going to get her book, because when you do the 3100, it's just a huge race, and it has so many elements. And definitely I could see that as a woman, there was elements of it that are really different than for the men, and I couldn't really identify what those were. And so as soon as I've also always been like a feminist and been totally into being a really, you know, being a strong woman and being proud of being a woman, and also like really, I guess the second time I did it, I was the only woman who did the race, and I was this time. So I felt like this, like a way more added kind of almost responsibility to womankind to do my best. And, you know, like I wanted to be like a woman who does well and, you know, is strong. And so, yeah, I saw her and I was like, well, this is really interesting. And I think that the things that I mostly got out of it were just that there are things as an athlete that we need to do differently, and that like definitely like paying attention to the hydration aspect when it's hot, and you wouldn't want to read her book about that, but basically for women in the second half of your cycle, you have much more tendency to get dehydrated because your blood is becoming thicker, and so you if you don't hydrate more, then you're much more susceptible to getting dehydrated. And I think a lot of women have experienced this in like Ironman, those kind of races, if they're in the second part of their cycle leading up to getting their period, and are much more susceptible to dehydration. And in this race, the 3,100-mile race, it's like 52 days. So you're going through like a couple of cycles, which is like quite an unusual thing in sport for a woman. So I actually contacted Stacey and I met her, and she was quite interested in, you know, in her and how what she's done would relate to that race. So finding out ways to deal with that. Also, when I had done the race previously, I had really seen how I would just dread when I was gonna get my period, because I'd be like, oh, you know, what's gonna happen to me? And the guys don't have to deal with this at all, and this, you know. And so she speaks about eating more protein, having less carbohydrates, and hydrating well, and but also just kind of understanding. For me, I never really understood scientifically what was really happening, and so kind of having this understanding of what's happening, and that she's studied it, and she's seen that there's things that you can do to mean that you're not going to fall apart and you're going to come out stronger. And so I think that the biggest thing I got from learning just a few things from her was just feeling so much more confident that as a woman I was going to be fine, you know. This wasn't going to, I had a few things that I was going to do. I had some things that I could take, and I had a plan in place to deal with it, and this wasn't going to be a hindrance for me. And you know, actually the day that you get your period, your hormones are sweet, you're going to be stronger than ever. And you know, that was that was huge. And that's probably one thing that I would say, and that I feel super happy that she's become so well known, and that everything she's doing is is becoming so well known. It's just giving girls and women the confidence to see a way forward.
So true. So, well, that's been pretty much a theme in this episode, hasn't it? About seeing a way forward. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I definitely, there'll be links in the show notes to Stacey's stuff, including her book Raw, which we certainly recommend. Thank you for sharing, especially as someone who is going to finish this interview and go out on a run. And I started my period this morning. You are getting me off on the right foot.
Yes, ultimate day.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so talking about the 3100 course, 3,100 miles, as we said, up to 18 hours of running a day, or maybe even a few days of more. Let's talk about the attitude you had, or you have, going into the race, about it being for others, how running is bigger than your own or our own personal goals. Like, talk about the way you approach the race.
Sure. So I guess that everybody who does it would have a different approach to it. And for me, I guess I would go back just a little to me, my personality and the way that I first kind of did the race. Like I didn't see myself as one of these amazing women athletes who's done everything they can and I'm ready to run this race. Like I had friends who I saw as those kind of people, and I saw a lot of guys for many years doing this race, and I saw them as a completely different breed of person than me, and as these really like tough, like just super mentally tough, physically tough kind of people. And I always kind of saw myself like as a bit of a kid, and I hadn't done like a huge amount of multi-day races, because the ones I had done, although I had done okay in them, like my recovery had been terrible, and I hadn't like kind of bounced on to the next one. I'd more like taken 5 years to recover. So when I got the inspiration to do the race, I kind of felt like, well, this is going to be all God's grace, really. This is not something that I'm going to go into as this really strong, tough person. I'm just going to be having to completely rely on the inspiration that I have, and feeling that it's going to come from within myself, having the capacity to do it. So when I was standing on the start line of the first 3,100 mile race, I was thinking, this is outrageous. I can't believe it's me who's standing here. But at the same time, I thought, well, I'll just do my best. And if I can survive for 3 days, that will be good. And at least I will have followed my heart and done what I was inspired to do. And even if I completely fail, it's better to give it a go than just to not follow your heart and not follow your inspiration and not try. So I was actually like surprisingly surrendered to just having a disastrous experience my first time, or just like, I was like, that's okay, because there was another woman, Yolanda Holder, who she's an African-American woman. She was also, the two of us were doing it for the first time, and she actually race walked it, and she was going into it like, I'm going to nail this race, like I'm going to break the record, and she had all these goals. She had a watch on each hand, like, on each wrist, like measuring everything, and I was like, she was so tough and so confident and strong, and I was like, wow, I'm totally different from her. But in the end, we both ended up finishing the race, and it was so, I did so much better than I could ever have possibly imagined. And there's so many ways that I could go in that with talking about it, but definitely, like you were mentioning, kind of it being something bigger than myself. And the race is one of those things that, well, all athletes who take their training seriously know that you have to spend so much time training and getting ready for it. And I spent so much time going on these huge long runs and kind of trying to mentally prepare myself for it, and trying to figure out all the details of the helpers and all the things that I needed, that I felt like each time I've done it, it's kind of been, you feel like you're spending an incredibly disproportionate amount of time on yourself, and just, just in this kind of world of like completely, it's all about me and this race that I'm doing, and spending all this time training, and it can feel like kind of like a selfish activity. But then each time I've done it, and I've done it 3 times now, when you start the race, something like kind of flips, and all of a sudden it's really, it's obviously you're making progress through it, and it's your own journey in a sense, but it's really just for all of humanity. And you really see how by one person overcoming their own obstacles and their own challenges, how much that can offer to other people and to humanity. And that ties in so much with Sri Chinmoy's philosophy of self-transcendence, and of the crucial role that the individual plays in the big picture. And and I just saw it so powerfully, just with all of my friends, and with the people who I didn't know who would send messages, and with the people who would come to the race, just how much they were getting out of it. And then also for this race to happen, it has a huge amount of people involved. There's a huge amount of people who from around the world who give donations to make it possible financially to the race. And then to me also, I had a lot of friends who gave me donations to make it possible for me to do it. And then the supporters from around the world, and then just all the people who are there cooking and counting the laps and directing it and organizing it and coming to support it. It's just it takes a huge village to make it happen. And as one of the runners, you can end up feeling like you're just one small one small piece in that whole thing, which is such a beautiful feeling. Actually, it's like we all play our role, and your role is to run, but there's no way you'd be able to do it without all these other people playing their role. And in the end, that is just such a beautiful thing. And that's a huge part of the beauty of this race, is that we all play our roles, and in the end it creates something so
related to that, what have you become aware of that in terms of what this race means to you, to others, to humanity? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's called the Self-Transcendence 3100-mile race. It was Sri Chinmoy's dream. He was an athlete as a young person himself, and that was always a part of his spiritual life. Then when he came to America in the 60s, and then the 70s, 80s went into the running boom, and he had always given so much importance to running, but then he really saw, the marathon, how much it gives people when they complete this race, and how this is so kind of connected with our spiritual journey, and that if you run longer, it's like you have the opportunity to transcend yourself more. And so he always stressed that world peace will only come about from each one of us as individuals finding peace within ourselves. And I think he just really saw the correlation between people going and doing, for a start, marathons, and the struggle that you go through, all of the difficulties and everything, but then at the end of it, you become a better person. You really, more about yourself. You go through all of these things, you find the strength within yourself, you feel great physically. He talked about the body being the temple, and the shrine being like the altar within the temple. And so that's one reason he also gave so much importance to keeping your body in good condition, because our body is our sacred vehicle for our whole life. And so fitness, being fit, is the best possible way to keep your body in good condition. So seeing how when people put all of this discipline into their running, they get their body in good condition, they challenge their mind, and they have to dive within themselves to find this deeper part of themselves. And so it has a huge impact. And then then he became inspired for the Sri Chinmoy Marathon team to hold multi-day races. And then he kind of, because his whole philosophy is that we are unlimited as human beings. We have unlimited potential. And, we've seen that now that's been like a real feature with the marathon just being, with the marathon record just being broken. And that was something that he actually spoke about. He spoke about someone running the marathon under 2 hours. Like, he started talking about it like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, someone's going to do this, and they're going to come from Africa, and they're going to be like, it's not going to be like their outer capacities. It's going to be their inner depth that they have. And then, with Kipchoge, we just saw all of that. Like, and what an incredible inspiration he ended up being. But anyway, getting into the multi-day world, then we had Sri Chinmoy first organised a 6-day race, then a 10-day race, then a 1,000-mile race, and a 1,300-mile race. And then he just had this vision for doing something just like a crazy length that was really, it's really just to show the unlimited capacity that we all have as individuals. And you can know it, and you can say that it's true, but unless you actually do it, how can you prove it? So he was like, this is a way to just really show that. And he was born in 1931. He saw the number 31 as a significant number. And so for myself, definitely going from I did the 6-day race 3 times. I did a 10-day race. For me to go from doing a 6-day race to a 10-day race was just like the hugest leap mentally. I mean, the day that before I started the 10-day race, I was throwing up. I was so I was so nervous about running for 4 more days. And so then, and I knew that. I was like, I did the 6-day race 3 times because I couldn't bring myself to do 10 days. I was like, oh my God, 4 more days. So then to see for myself, like, just going from doing a 10-day race where I didn't actually make the mileage that you have to make for the 3,100. You're supposed to do 600 miles in 10 days so that you've run 60 miles a day so that you can, sort of prove that you maybe have the capacity, if you can do 60 miles a day for 10 days, that you can do it for 52. The most, I did 540 miles in 10 days, so I only did 54 miles a day.
Only.
But luckily the race directors, they knew me, and I guess there weren't that many people entering the race that year, and they thought that they would, that I could give it a go. And I just had this real inner feeling to do it. So the fact that I was able to do that is, insane. So, for myself and my own progress and my own perception of what I can do with my life, whenever I'm feeling like I can't do that, it's too hard or it's too difficult, like, I have to be honest with myself and say, okay, like, I ran 3,100 miles. Like, I have within myself so much more capacity than I can ever imagine. And, and then I just really, to be able to share that story with other people and to say, there's no way that I thought that I could do this, and I could. So whatever your dreams are, whatever you have these impossible, fantasies in the back of your mind that you might be able to do it, just start and give it a go, because you have no idea of your capacity until you try.
Oh, thank you. That was going to be my wrap-up question, was what would you tell someone? So you answered it for me. I am so thankful for you sharing today, not only about the race, and I definitely, again, encourage people to go listen to the episode with Sanjay, but also just, talking about the other elements, about a little bit about mental health, a bit talking about female menstrual cycles and how that can affect us. I appreciate just you, that light, that energy. I can feel it just in talking to you, and I'm so thankful for this opportunity. So looking forward to following along in the future, and just appreciating you for all that you've done to bring good into this world. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. And thank you so much for what you're doing. It's really, it's so important, and there's so many ways that we can all help the world and do something good for the world, and you're following your heart and your passion, and really your intentions are so good, and then you see them just how much goodness you're offering to the world. And so that's super inspiring for me. And thank you.
That's really sweet. I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi friends, just a quick message to say a big thank you to the Running for Real team. While I may be the face of Running for Real and the voice behind the podcast, there are a group of people who are working tirelessly to provide everything that runners could need within our community, to make our community stronger, better, and evolve and grow and learn from one another. We are working really hard to make Running for Real the place we believe it can be within our community. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone on our team. That is Victoria, Stacey, Sandy, Sally, Maria, Kelsey, Kat, Jeremy, and Erica. I appreciate each and every one of you and the hard work that you put in. Now let's get back to the show. Wow. What an incredible woman. I love her perspective on life. I love the lessons that she has taken. And I still find it so hard to understand how people who do the Sri Chinmoy Self-Transcendence run are able to do it. It just, I just can't, I don't know how you feel about this, but I really struggle to imagine being able to do that. It's just incredible. I know that word is overused, but it's just amazing. So you can go find her on social media. She is not a social media person, but you can go read up more on her story. And you can also, you can send me a message if you have enjoyed this, and I will pass it along to her. I'm sure she would love to hear that. And my friends, you can go check out our sponsors if you want to support the people, the brands who help make this podcast a reality, that help us to continue and allow me to do this role. So thank you to those of you who have supported in the past, but also you can get yourself some massive deals and savings. So remember, with Tracksmith, you can get yourself any of those items I mentioned earlier on. My favorite right now is the Brighton base, and I'm also loving the waffle top. And you can go to tracksmith.com and use code TINA15, and that will donate 5% of your order to Runners for Public Lands, which is a fantastic organization. So you can use code TINA15 there. You can also get 20% off your order of UCAN. I have used UCAN in all my races since 2013. I'm a massive UCAN fan. Use it in my daily life and can't imagine life without it. You can use code TINAUCAN to get yourself 20% off your order. And thank you to Athletic Greens. If ever we needed Athletic Greens, this is the year for it, right? Vitamin D, that free vitamin D, D3 and K2 combination is a fantastic combination to keep you healthy and strong. It is really going to help your body be prepared to deal with some of the nasties that are coming our way this winter, along with the original AG1 product that is just going to give your immune system that boost to get it through the season. Remember that code, the special deal will be for anyone in the US, in Canada, in Europe, UK, all of it. You can all get this special discount by going to athleticgreens.com/Tina. That's athleticgreens.com/Tina. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends. I will see you on Monday for a Together run and next week for a regular episode. Thanks so much.